Welcome to the Provider's Report, where we delve into the world of value-based healthcare. Our mission is to empower healthcare providers with the knowledge and tools they need to deliver exceptional patient care. Each episode, we explore best practices, innovative strategies, and real-world examples of how to achieve the highest standards in patient communication and outcomes. Join us as we transform the future of healthcare, one conversation at a time.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 32. We are bringing Dr. Rachel Huston back with us from the Body Lab to discuss opening a new practice or office and everything that it entails, especially in today's modern world, because things have changed a lot, even within the last 5 years. She has honestly crushed it as a business owner, and she has so many tips here for us to take away. Make sure you check out our last meeting with her, which was episode 27, all about being the quote-unquote young doctor. That episode was a ton of fun, and honestly, you guys loved it. It ended up being really popular, and I think the reason is she really transformed that negative mindset toward being a young healthcare provider and really let us focus on the perks that come with it and honestly how to capitalize on being that young doc. Also, don't forget to check out her clinic Instagram at thebodylab_Lincoln and her website, which is www.thebodylablnk.com. Hey everybody, we are here with Dr. Rachel, and she is the owner of the Body Lab in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I'm so excited to have her on because she is a young doc and she's absolutely crushing it with her new practice. So we're going to talk about all of the things. Where do you start with owning your own practice? How do you get there? Once you're there, what in the world do you do? Because let's face it, it's not a stagnant thing ever. We should always be constantly changing and growing. So I am so excited to learn from you today, Dr. Rachel. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is so fun.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. So just to get started, tell us about your background, how you kind of got to where you are, where you're from, where you went to school, and what you've been up to lately.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Dr. Rachel Huston, own the Body Lab, which is a rehab-focused chiropractic practice in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm from Nebraska originally. Grew up, I feel like if you look at my childhood, it's like the perfect foreshadowing of kind of where I am now. I was super sporty and played lots of sports and loved science, but I also had this huge creative side to me. Was really interested in art and writing and music. And so just was interested in a lot of stuff, which has helped me a lot where I am today. So did my undergrad here in Lincoln at the University of Nebraska, and then did chiropractic school at Palmer Davenport with you.
Yeah.
And then I did not open up right out of school. I actually had an associateship for about a year at a great practice in Kansas City, Fit Muscle and Joint Clinic. Shout out to the homies. Had a great experience there. And then, I always kind of knew that I would open up someday. So here I am. Opened up June of 2020, right smack dab in the middle of COVID. And here we are. It's been
awesome. Yeah, sounds like it. But, I actually forgot that you were an associate at one point, and that's so good to hear, because even though a lot of us could possibly be super ready to open right away, I do think no matter what, there are some things in an associateship you just can't learn anywhere else. And I'm sure you got that there, right?
I completely agree. I have so much respect for people who open up right out of school.
Yeah.
I was not ready at all. I learned so much in that year at that associateship, and I still have great relationships with all those docs. I was actually just back there for a seminar this past weekend, and just great to see them and great to be around them. So for me, that was absolutely necessary to learn from them and learn from people who have been in it longer than I have. So that was super valuable for me.
So at what point, you said you kind of always knew you were going to open, but was that a dream as a student? Were you in your associateship and just all of a sudden realized that's what you wanted to do? Or when did you make that first big step to start the Body Lab?
Yeah. So even before school, I was always like, I want to own my own place someday. Like, I just know my personality type. I hate authority and I have ideas. And I just knew that like someday I would end up doing that. But right out of school, like I said, I was just not ready. I was just excited to treat patients, get my hands on patients, get in the treatment room. I had not a dang clue how to open a business. So for me, getting that confidence that first year and getting in the treatment room and just kind of getting my feet under me was so necessary for me. And then I kind of, I don't know, I guess got my confidence up a little bit and kind of saw what it took to build a patient base, and also believed that I could do it. After a year of doing it and building your schedule, you're like, wait, like maybe I can do this. And so then after a few months, I was like, all right, I think it's ready to take the leap. So started making plans and opened up about a year and a couple months after starting that associateship.
Okay, awesome. And so it sounds like you kind of made the decision and then you took some time to plan, which I think is pretty key, because I've talked to several other associates who make that big leap, and some of them just dive right in and have no idea what they're doing. And then 6 months later, they completely rechange their business plan, they rebrand, they change their logo even. So it sounds like you did the opposite. You kind of sat down and figured out exactly what you wanted first. Is that right?
Yes, I am very much a planner, I would say. And I wanted to make sure all my ducks were in a row before I just like left my really great job and up and left and moved cities and just jumped in without being prepared. I wanted to give myself kind of the best possible chance for success. So yeah, I worked on my business plan for months. Like my business plan is 55 pages long.
Oh my gosh. So
it's ridiculous.
I mean, good for you though, because then there are no surprises. So
yes.
What kinds of things do you have to start with when you first make this decision? I mean, what do you have to figure out?
Oh man. So for me, starting with the business plan was key because it just makes you really think through every single detail. Like it makes you research your market. It makes you know all of your numbers and crunch those numbers and do your projections and think about who is my audience? Who do I want to be my patients? Where are they? What kinds of places are they hanging out at? Where are the other chiropractors in town? How many are there? And it just like all of those details that you might not just think of at the beginning, it helps you really think through all of that. So that was huge for me to be able to work through each step like that and just be like, okay, so this is more than just finding a space, putting up a cute sign, showing up and like hoping people come. Like there's way more involved than just that. So for me, starting with the business plan was absolutely instrumental. And that's always, I get people asking me a lot, like, where do I start? What do I do? And I'm always like, make your business plan. And even if your banker or whoever you're taking it to doesn't need all those details, you need those details.
Big time.
You need to think through all of those. So.
Even if they're details you might not need for a couple of years, at least you have them.
Yeah. And it's subject to change too, but having something down is huge.
Well, and I like the fact that you mentioned the word change, because I truly believe that change should be inevitable. And I personally, my heart is crushed when I see these great businesses who are just so cemented in their ways, but they have so much potential for growth. Even as an associate, when I think of my practice and what I do, every 6 months, every 12 months, I'm thinking, okay, how can I change what I'm doing? How can I take the next step? And I think as a business, that's even more important. It's wonderful if you're making money. It's wonderful if you're, newly successful, but what else could you be doing? I mean, I don't know. I've always been a huge fan of change though, and I don't like to get comfortable. So I don't know.
Same. And I totally think of it. So with owning a business and just being a clinician, I think of it as like two different categories. You have your like foundational basics that you don't want to change. Those are the things that always work. Those like little mundane tasks that you just do day in, day out because they build your foundation. That might be, going to networking meetings or asking for reviews, like those little things that you need to stay consistent on. And then there's those things, those bigger picture things that you need to constantly be changing and thinking of, how can we make this better? How can we do this differently? Because if you take an idea that worked in the beginning and then you're just constantly trying to copy and paste that, you're going to stay stagnant. You need to constantly being like, how can we shift? How can we adapt or do things differently? So I'm with you. I love change though. I think.
Awesome. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because some people think I'm crazy for it.
Some people don't like change. I never understood that.
Me neither. And I've creeped your Instagram a million times. So I know that you've had some help too. You haven't done everything on your own, which is awesome. So I'd love to know, who did you pull in for advice? Who did you get help with on certain projects in preparation of the practice? Who did you feel like could add to what you were trying to create?
Oh my goodness, it took a village, and I'm very thankful that I have so many amazing people kind of in my corner. So one of my best friends is a photographer and does like website design. He did my website.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
I will link that in the show notes. You guys have to check it out. And the photos I'm just obsessed with. And you're a perfect example of why we shouldn't just always use stock images. Like, how easy is it to find a great photographer, do a spread, get a few ideas of what you may need, and just have a surplus of that photography shoot to use on your website, to use on your Instagram. Oh, okay. Keep going. I'm sorry I interrupted, but your website's gorgeous.
Thank you. And one of my other best friends is a freelance copywriter. And so she helps me with a lot of just like my branding and my brand book and just kind of writing some of the blurbs on my website, helping me think through some of that. My sister is also a photographer and videographer. She's helped me with a lot of my social media shots. My grandpa works in construction and was an engineer and helped me with some of the design stuff. And my mom is great at organizing. I don't know. I swear I've utilized every person in my life kind of in a different way, and just very thankful to have had all of them, because I would not have been able to do it on my own.
But that's so smart, because some people do try to do that. And I fall into that trap too with some projects that I do. You know, you have a vision. You're like, okay, I know what I want. I know what I want. I know what I want. But we always need help. Yes. Always. I mean, even if it's just looking at something through a different lens, that's what somebody's other perspective can bring. Like, think about your build out, for example. You may have known exactly what you wanted, but maybe somebody else, like your grandpa, chimed in like, hey, I would tweak that. And you're like, whoa, that looks great. And then that's that final product that you end up with. So
yeah. And I think a big part of it is the self-awareness to know like areas that you're not strong in or not naturally strong in. Yes. Like, I originally planned to build my whole website. I was like, oh, how hard can it be? They make templates. I'll just get on Squarespace. And I tried that for a week, and I was wasting so much time. I was literally in tears trying to build this website. And I'm like, at this point, I'm wasting so much time that it's not even worth trying to it's worth now paying someone to do it faster, better, and more efficiently. Yeah. So realizing those areas that you're not naturally strong, so you're not just wasting your time.
That's really smart. And so you've obviously only been in practice. Okay. So you said June 2020. Yes. So just over 1 year, which is awesome. Yes. Yeah. And you've grown so much. You have an intern working with you. You're hiring an associate right now, which is amazing after just 1 year in practice. So what do you attribute that success to? I mean, what things are like the hallmark things that you're so grateful you did that helped build you so fast?
So probably a couple things. I think the big one for me is knowing that I wanted to be just totally different than any other kind of chiropractic model in Lincoln and in Nebraska and just kind of in general. Mm-hmm. I didn't want it to just be the model of chiropractic people are used to, with crazy treatment plans and with just like 5-minute appointments. And I don't know, I wanted it to feel a little bit more like an experience, and like you come in and it's this cool, trendy environment, and you can get a LaCroix, and oh, there's a gym here, and oh, like, I don't know. I feel like I just wanted it to be different in all aspects that way, from the design to the appointments to that kind of thing. And then secondly, it just can't be stated enough, like how much it is about the people, and just those relationships. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that you can be a very average clinician, I believe, but care so much about your patients and have a wildly successful practice. Like, I know that I'll never be the world's best adjuster or dry needler or know the most DNS, but I try to make it such a priority to really care about my patients. And in the beginning of practice, I don't even know why or how I started doing this or where the thought came from. But after every new patient, I would go in their note and I would write their dog's name and how many kids they have and what they do for a living, and they're going on vacation next week. So then when they come back in next week, I can ask them about those things. And that means so much to people when you remember those things and they don't just feel like, oh, do they even know my name? I'm just another person on their schedule. And when they're like, wow, like she actually cares about me, that goes so far. And people are more likely to tell their friends or tell their mom or tell their whoever it is. And then you really get those referrals and those personal relationships built. So that's really my biggest I guess, advice for building a practice quickly is just care so much about your people and don't get so caught up in like, oh, am I a good enough adjuster or am I good enough at whatever? So
that's great advice, especially in today's world, because healthcare has become, and partially because of insurance companies, but healthcare has just become so dry and so cold. And I'm right there with you. I mean, my husband and I talk about this all the time. You know, you want to create an environment where people want to go. You know, when they have an appointment, they should be excited about coming to you, not only just because they're going to feel better, but because of the environment that you create. And in today's world, that's a visual environment. And then you provide that, you know, personal environment too. And that's huge. So patients will keep coming, and you're right. They will send their friends because they want them to have a good experience too.
yeah, no, absolutely. And even just something as simple as like a patient in the waiting room snapping a picture of my neon sign or whatever and sharing it on Instagram, things that are that simple and shareable kind of help spread the word and build the buzz. And you want people, like you said, to be excited to come and excited to share about it and talk about it to their friends.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and not even just healthcare offices, but think about other fields too, like restaurants and restaurants especially, but law offices, all these other professions are following suit finally when they're building new places. You know, they want to have something trendy that people are going to be pumped about and that someone's going to take a snapshot of and share and say, hey, I went to that restaurant on Friday. You should go there because they have this wall of champagne glasses that makes no sense, you know, and it seems like something so trivial, but that ridiculous wall of champagne glasses, maybe with a cute sign above it, like that might be the reason why they make thousands more dollars that week than the restaurant next door.
Yeah, it's so true because it really is about the experience. Like who cares if you have, you know, good food? So do a lot of restaurants. If there's not that extra experiential.
Extra. I like that word. Because that's true. You're providing that extra touch, the extra anything just to make it better.
Yes.
I love it.
Just the bare minimum.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to kind of divide this in half in terms of what are some great things about owning your own practice. And I also want to talk about, you know, maybe if there is a negative to owning your own practice, kind of pros and cons of staying in a hospital system or staying in an associateship. You know, some of our listeners work at a hospital in the ER. Some of them have great associateships, but they've always wondered in the back of their minds, you know, should I open? What are the pros and cons? So in your mind, go ahead and talk personally first. For you, what's the best thing? And then what maybe is the worst thing about being an owner? And then talk about maybe what other people should think of when they're making that decision.
That's a great question. The best for me is just the autonomy and the freedom. I am very much a big picture, future oriented thinker. I love thinking about how can we take this in this direction, or what can we do with this, or kind of the strategy behind the marketing and kind of all that fun behind the scenes stuff. I love that. I love treating patients, but I'm, like we said, I need a lot of change. I don't want to just be doing kind of the same thing day in, day out. So I get a lot of joy kind of envisioning where I could take this and coming up with new ideas and kind of that freedom that way. That being said, the worst part of it is I think a lot of people, when they think of owning their own practice, they're like, oh, I'm going to make so much more money and have so much more time and be so much more flexible. And it's like, you're kind of a slave to it in some regard, at least at first. Like I have talked to students who are like, yeah, I want to own my practice because I want to have more free time. And it's like, ooh, then this might not actually be for you because you don't have a lot of that in the beginning. And if you want to make more money, like that's great, but also realize that I think I put something on my Instagram the other day that was like, business ownership is just writing one massive check after another. Like, oh, the AC breaks, you got to fix that. Oh, water leaks in, you got to fix that. Oh, people are asking you for sponsorships. Like there's just a lot of things that require cash flow.
Yeah.
And like I knew that going in, but maybe not to the extent. So that is just a huge reality check for sure, is that sometimes it's not as just awesome and freeing as it maybe looks. So that's probably the worst part of it, if there is one. Now, for me, the pros far outweigh the cons, but
definitely,
that's what I like to definitely make clear for some people who just think that it's a breeze.
Yeah. So know what you want. I mean, open for the right reason, essentially.
Yes, 100%. And as far as like staying in an associateship versus going out on your own, I mean, like you said, kind of know why you're in it. For me, I know that I really didn't expect the loneliness
Yeah.
factor because I went from a team environment of, I think there was like 20 other doctors working at that clinic. And we were always in meetings. We were always together. We were always, even in the clinic, you can bounce into the treatment room next to you and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or even just joke around or whatever. And just always having that companionship and that team environment was awesome. And now that I'm completely kind of on my own, I miss that a lot. I find myself wanting to bounce ideas off of other clinicians or just have someone else here. So that's probably the thing that I miss the most about it. And that's not to say that I can't build my own team, but
Exactly. And you're in the process of doing so.
Yes. I just think that that's something I was not prepared for. And I know that a lot of people crave that team environment as well and thrive off of that as well. So I would say definitely consider that too if you're thinking of making the plunge.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I always talk to people about too is time really does matter. So if you're single, no kids, have the ability to stay up until midnight every single night and just constantly work on things, that's one thing. If you are a single mother with 3 kids and you have an amazing associateship where you're making great money, you really have to weigh those pros and cons at that point if your children are young. Where you live matters, so many different things. So money for sure should be the last kind of thing on your mind. Obviously, you have so much potential to make more if you own your own in a lot of environments. A lot of us, some of us do have really good associateships financially, but there's always kind of going to be that cutoff because you have so much autonomy when you own your own. It just might be a journey in the beginning, but it's so nice not to have that cap.
Yes, for sure. Not having that ceiling. Because when you're, in an associateship, like you said, there is that ceiling of, okay, you can only see so many patients in a week. And then that's your ceiling. But if you're the owner, then there's other streams of income, hiring another doctor or selling stuff or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing to think about too. And I think the thing that surprised me too is I feel like a lot of people in our culture like to talk about balance and you should have a work-life balance and blah, blah, blah. And I just don't really believe in that. I think to some extent you should, but I think there are seasons where certain things take more of your energy and time than others.
Yeah.
So for you, you have a baby who is beautiful. It's like the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. And there's a period of time where she's going to require more of your energy and attention than maybe other endeavors in your life or other things in your life. And for me right now, my clinic is my baby and that is taking all of my time and energy, and maybe my social life is taking a back burner or other things. And I think it's good to realize that you're not always going to maybe have the perfect balance.
That's a good point. And that's where kind of change comes into the picture too, because the ratio that you have of social life to work life to whatever is hopefully going to change. Just like mine should change. There's going to come a point where my kids will be of a certain age where I'm able to do more while they're at school. And so I should have a shift in that paradigm, just like you probably will when you start to develop your team. You're going to be able to put more of your efforts toward marketing, toward branding, toward this, toward that, and maybe kind of back off a little bit on clinical practice. And that's going to be great. And that may change in 5 years. It may change in 10 years, but I think we have to open ourselves up to that. And that can be really hard, especially if you've been in practice for a really long time. So my dad, for example, I don't even know how long he's been in practice. My dad's a chiropractor for listeners who don't know, but he's got to be around 30 years or just something ridiculous. Wow. Yeah. And so you can imagine chiropractic was very different back then, number one. And then number two, he has a great practice. And so, sometimes in some days we wonder, why change things?
Yeah.
And my dad is so awesome. And he actually just hired on my brother, and they've changed so many things in the last year that I can't even keep up. And everything they're doing is just going to make them even better. But so if anyone's listening who might not be your classic young doc, right? Less than 5 years out of practice, you too can initiate change. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as building a brand new practice or anything, but you can make a couple changes to your office that may seem small, but could just pay off in dividends like crazy. So I think indirectly this conversation has led to the topic of change. But I think it's so important regardless of where you are in practice. And I love that you've really adopted that because it's clearly working wonders where you're at.
Oh, thank you. Yes, definitely. I feel like it's inevitable. And so the more adaptable you can be and the more you can embrace it, the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely. So to close, you already mentioned you're hiring an associate doc. So you are going to build that team and no longer be lonely.
Yes. Personal plug. If anyone's looking for a job.
Yes. It is mid-July of 2021 when we're recording this. So if you're listening and it's relatively that time and you're interested in practicing at an awesome place in Lincoln, Nebraska, hit her up. I will have all of her contact information in the show notes. She's only going to take the best of the best. So if that is you, hit her up.
Thank you. Yes. Hit me up, please.
Yes. And so what else is to come? I mean, what are some plans that you can share with us? Some goals that you might have, things that you're looking forward to in the next year of practice?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, the number one order of business is bringing on that second doctor. I started that search a couple months ago and I've been kind of interviewing people and reviewing applications and just have not found the one yet. I'm being pretty picky.
As you should.
As I should, but I'm kind of like, okay, I am needing help. So, so I know that the right person is going to come along and just being patient there. But yeah, like I said, that's the first order of business, just getting that second person on board. And then really, especially with COVID kind of dying down or on its way out, or at least with more people vaccinated, I'm hoping to do more like community building things or things where I bring people together, whether that's workshops or little pop-ups. I have a gym space that I would love to utilize, whether that's for seminars or little classes here and there. So that's really kind of on my mind as well, just how to kind of build that out and make that more of a community thing rather than just purely one-on-one chiropractic appointments.
Yeah, I love it. Always looking to the next thing like a good practice owner.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, by the way. This information is awesome. So I really hope all of our listeners are going to take away some great things. And maybe if you're on the fence and you're listening to this and you think, you know what, I think I should open my own too, listen to this episode really, really in depth, take notes, check out her website, definitely follow her on Instagram. I mean, it's a beaut. And just take away some info and make that next step today. You guys can do it. So thanks again for joining us, Doc. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Another great one from Rachel Huston, guys. What an absolute gem. Once again, if you are enjoying our show, please, please, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and give us a follow on Instagram at Better Doctor Project. We appreciate all of the support, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Provider's Report. We hope you found today's episode valuable and inspiring. To stay updated with our latest episodes, subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to listen. For more resources and continuing education opportunities, visit our website. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our patients and truly set a standard for value-based healthcare.